Thank you for joining us on Tax Matters. A few episodes ago, we began a series in which we are taking an in-depth look at the activities of the FIRS via the prisms of coordinating directors, men who supervise the various departments, tax offices, and formations of the service spread across the country. Call it FIRS Unveiled if you like, and you won't be wrong. Mr. Femi Oluwaniyi is the Coordinating Director, Tax Operations Group at the FIRS. His group supervises 10 departments of the service. Joining us on today's episode of Tax Matters is Mr. Femi Oluwaniyi. He's the Coordinating Director, Tax Operations Group of the FIRS. Mr. Oluwaniyi, thank you for joining us on Tax Matters.
You're welcome. I appreciate you for having me on the program too.
Sir, your group, the Tax Operations Group, has been described as the engine room of the FIRS. Tell us why this is so.
Thank you for that question. It's very simple. Everybody in FIRS knows that the Tax Operations Group is the primary group. Let me put it that way. We are in charge of the primary mandate of the service, which is assessing and collecting, and to some extent, accounting for taxes. So that means all those offices you see that belong to FIRS all over the nation, we are talking of over 200 offices. They are actually members of the Tax Operations Group and the staff in there. And I think we have more than 80% of the workforce belonging to that group. Therefore, when you see that in terms of distribution, it is like the octopus in the room. It takes the lion's share of the space. It's in fact, well over 200 offices nationwide that belong to the Tax Operations Group. You have the primary tax offices. You have what we also call the state coordinators. A state coordinating office could be in charge of like 3 states, for example. And then you have even at the headquarters here, where you have the directors of the different departments. As a matter of fact, we have 10 different departments in the Tax Operations Group. That means 10 directors who each of these tax groups report to. You have the large tax offices, for example. You have the micro and small taxpayers office. They are organized under the state coordinators. The state coordinators under the director, that's the director in charge of micro and small taxpayers department at the headquarters, who is one of the directors that I coordinate. So that's massive to say. Thank you.
Now let's look at some of the departments now. For instance, let's take the Special Tax Department. What do they do?
Okay, thank you. Before I answer your question directly in terms of what they do, it is the latest of our departments. It actually came in the middle of last year, and it's part of the vision of the new leadership. And what it does, to now go to your question specifically, is to oversee what I call emerging realities in some tax types, and even some new taxes that may come up. Emerging realities in the sense of focus that had not been there before, and attention, for example, on stamp duties. You will recall that stamp duties is the in thing now. We never thought it could be such a player in the space. We never thought it had so much potential that were not harnessed. But thank God, the current chairman seemed to have had all these in his mind ever before he came on board. Saw those untapped potentials, and immediately he came in. As a matter of fact, I remember him saying that I will make stamp duties the flagship of collection in FIRS. Some of us, even those of us who are within before. We didn't really understand until we caught the vision. So stamp duties is raking in so much money now. Government itself has realized it. Our targets on this have increased. Finance Act has touched upon it last year, this year, and therefore it is taken out of the regular mix for this department to focus on. We're also thinking that in future there could be what I call emerging taxes. Now, this digital economy thing, the way matters are happening in the digital space, some countries have gone ahead to create what we call digital tax, not just the normal income tax. And you can tell it's just a possibility that may be the way out for us too, the digital tax. We have in the Finance Act of this year what is called the excise tax on the telecommunications. It was just a new introduction. So how that one will run, we are still considering it. And therefore, that department is to just continue to operate, to harness such realities as they come on board. There's this Lottery Act that has been in the books, which nobody had been very mindful of before, but now we are forced to implement it. Lottery Act is like gives some manner of computing taxes such that the rates are lower than the conventional income tax, and so on and so forth. We may just find that we are calling it lottery tax instead of income tax. So for them, that would be like a new tax kind of a thing, and then it will be on the special taxes department. And one other thing that department does, apart from the issue of administering taxes, whether new, whether old, whether emerging, is also to be able to go into the possibilities available in terms of information sharing. What I mean by information sharing is with other agencies and other areas where we can gather data to enhance compliance from taxpayers. So that's one of the remits of that department. That's why that department is actually called Special Taxes Department.
So now, looking at this electronic money transfer levy, will we call it a special tax also?
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's one I should have also mentioned when I was talking about the emerging tax realities and emerging taxes. You will recall that stamp duties created a lot of furrow, if you like. So last year, especially, there was this time the issue of NIPOST contesting it, which agencies the particular one, all right, to collect, since the word stamp, appears there. So all that seems to have been taken care of, at least as per the electronic money transfers, by naming it Electronic Money Transfer Levy. That's what the Finance Act 2020 set out to solve. That let it not be, let the word stamp go out of it, and therefore let it be clear that it has nothing to do with postages, or the postal authorities. And another thing that enactment intended to also solve, you will recall, is also that some states were feeling like, okay, these transfers in money by banks and the stamp duties aspect of it, maybe some should belong to states directly in the reasoning of individual to individual, whereas we always labored to explain that it's not about individual to individual. Once the bank is involved, it's between the bank and whoever is transferring the money or receiving it, whether it's an individual or a corporate entity. And the law has stated clearly that once a corporate entity is involved, in this case the bank, it should be a federal thing. So that's coming out clearly now in the enactment, saying yes, it is to be administered at the federal level, and the sharing formula and everything was now put in place to solve all those problems. That's why that EMTL, the electronic money transfer levy enactment had to come, and I think it has solved a lot of problems, and it has a lot of potentials to reap for the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Interesting. Now let's look at the Government Business Taxpayers Department. What does this department do?
The name Government Business Taxes Department, whether we see them as being in business or not, even the ministry that has nothing to do with business, like let's say Ministry of Information, for example, I hope Ministry of Information, there will be works that will have to be done inside the Ministry of Information. There will be some construction elements to go up there. And whoever is doing that project for them, whoever is bringing up a structure or anything like that, will necessarily, in most cases, be a businessman. Contracts are awarded for businesses to do for government. And there is this mandate in the law that whoever is paying such a businessman or a contractor has obligation to help us by withholding tax. So at that point, we are interested. We are interested the tax that government should withhold, how they do it, and that they do it comprehensively and adequately. That's why that aspect of government business is also coming on board. And therefore, we put all this in a basket to say a department, a set of offices called government business tax offices. They won't go to companies, for example. They will go to ministries, departments, and agencies of government and see that the needful is done, that monies are remitted as they are supposed to be. That's what that department takes care of, and that's why it is called the Government Business Taxes Department.
Yeah, it is actually clearer now because we thought that government did not pay taxes.
No, government will not pay income tax like you and me do, and like companies also pay companies income tax on their profits. No, government, after all, is the one that takes back this tax at the end of the day. So why subject government to pay tax? But if government is consuming, government will pay VAT. And if you are doing business for government as a contractor, government will help us to withhold tax from the money they pay you. That's the sense that we mean when we say government business taxes. Thank you.
Do you provide goods and services? Then you must answer these important questions. Are you registered for VAT? Do you charge VAT on the goods and services you provide? Do you keep records of all your transactions? Do you file VAT returns? Do you remit VAT collected to government coffers? If your answer to any of these questions is no, then you are breaking the law. The law demands total compliance. Therefore, you must register for VAT. You must charge VAT on goods and services. You must file VAT returns. And you must remit all VAT collected on behalf of government within 21 days to the bank nearest to you. To do otherwise is a crime punishable everywhere in the world. VAT is prescribed by the law. Do the right thing. Collect and pay VAT. This message is from the FIRS. It pays to pay your tax.
Welcome back. We still have with us Mr. Oluwaniyi, the Coordinating Director, Tax Operations Group at the FIRS. Now, two things have stood out from the beginning of 2021 as driving the process at the FIRS. One is the renewed emphasis on technology and automation, and the second is on the emphasis on indirect taxes over and above direct taxes. Now, I would like to know, how is technology driving your operations?
Thank you very much for that question, Amaka. The way technology has been helping us in terms of driving our business at FIRS is this. And before I even go to it, you will see that COVID coming on board last year and still not having departed from us has changed a lot of ways we do businesses now. A lot of things are done online. People can't gather ordinarily again. I know of sectors of businesses that since the time of the first total lockdown last year, they have yet not resumed physically. Most of those major oil companies, they operate from home. Most of the telecom companies, in fact, some of these big companies that have international affiliations, out of safety, they are still operating from home, but they are very effective about it. It's all about technology. It's all about being online. It's all about network being steady. It's all about information passage in the airspace. And in fact, I've heard from some of our colleagues there that it's even better to continue like that, that their delivery in terms of output by each staff is even more. Their productivity is better than when they come to the office. So you can imagine that. So to that extent, we have to also adapt. We have to change the way we also operate. We too, our lives are also very precious to us. Some of there was a time we had to, in fact, be spacing out staff come to the office and all of that. But in doing all this, does it now mean that we should not be at our best? We should not harness our potentials. We should not collect as much as we are supposed to collect? There's a way out, and that's where the technology comes in. So we have enhanced our online capabilities. They are now more robust. People can find online, they can pay online, and we have a system that is called Tax Pro Max. Tax Pro Max, which is fast integrating all our core processes. Tax Pro Max is moving fast. And I tell you now, as at now, for companies that have keyed in, they can not just file their returns online, they pay. After they pay, their accounts can be quickly updated right in the system, and they know their arrears, whether they are owing, whether they have they are paid, or whether they have excesses. Even where others have paid withholding tax on their behalf, their accounts get credited with the credit notes, with the withholding taxes as beneficiaries. And it's so robust, and it can only get better. The only challenge we have is just the awareness and to ensure that all businesses key into that project which is now available. And by the way, lest I forget, that same taxpayer that his account has been updated is now in position, if he has the right capabilities, can also log in and generate his receipts. He can take his credit notes. As a matter of fact, he can generate his tax clearance himself technologically. The other aspect is about how technology has been or will help us in terms of enhancing our level of collection. So what we have from the Finance Act 2020 now is that whatever technology we reel out, business owners are under it's compulsory for them to log on to our technology, and we know that there is a lot of leakages that our manual efforts have not been able to close in terms of gaps, and where we can now hook on to your database and we see transactions as they are going. That's the essence of the automation that FIRS is talking about. We should be able to have access to your digital aspect of your businesses, how invoices are raised and all of that, and ensure that the appropriate VAT are charged, withholding taxes are deducted, and they are remitted. We should be able to have it visibly at the FIRS. That's what technology will do for us. When we are able to do that in all sectors, there is no doubt that our collection will go up in leaps and bounds. Thank you.
And also towards the indirect taxes, the stamp duty, the VAT, and other indirect taxes.
As a matter of fact, Chiamaka, the enhancement we are talking about from this deployment of technology and automation is particularly about those that you have mentioned, which I call transactional taxes. It's not about companies' income tax, for example. You see, because or education tax, companies' income tax. You have to file an annual returns. Despite, irrespective of what the transactions and the daily businesses that have occurred, it is by way of accounts being made from them eventually, and then you are stating what income, tax should come out of it, and what education tax should come out of it. So that is an annual thing which we still continue. But these ones about technology, they are about the withholding taxes, they are about the stamp duties, they are about the VATs. So that's where the technology actually comes in to assist us.
London, New York or Lagos, business or holiday, home or office, you can now carry out your tax transactions from anywhere in the world. You can now file all your tax returns, pay online, get a receipt and even process your tax clearance certificate from anywhere in the world online and in real time. All you need to do is log on to www.firs.gov.ng and click on e-services and be introduced to the world of innovation, convenience and transparency from the FIRS. You can also pay stamp duty as you register a new company with the CAC or for other transactions that require stamp duty payment online. You can also file your withholding tax returns and determine the withholding tax deducted from you is in government covers so that you can get your receipt within 45 days as long as the deduction has been remitted. Yes, all of this and more online at www.firs.gov.ng/e-services. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC. Please note that all FIRS services are free of charge. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It pays to pay your tax.
So now we would like to get your collection targets for value-added tax, for stamp duties and other tax types in the short term and in the long term.
Okay, thank you very much. We have for this year, VAT is altogether 1.8 trillion naira. In terms of stamp duty, we have it as 12. We were given 17 last year, but interestingly, we collected 120. That's about almost 7 times of the given target last year. But the reason behind that is that government has separated the electronic money aspect of it, which was actually our strength, which delivered most of this 120 we are talking about. Government has separated it into what is called EMTL. It's no more stamp duties. So the stamp duty is 12, but the electronic money transfer levy is 500 billion naira. Petroleum profits tax, which is one of the big ones, for this year is 1.6 trillion naira. 1.6 trillion. Companies' income tax is about 1.47 trillion naira. The gas income is 511 billion. Capital gains tax is 7 billion. Education tax 323 billion. In terms of the personal income taxes, we still collect some elements of foreign residents, armed forces, and all of that. We have 74 billion naira to collect. We have this NITD levy, that is information levy, is 18 billion precisely, and everything totals 5.9 trillion. That's the target that government has given us for the year 2021, 5.9 trillion naira. Total for next year, that's 2022, like I said, is about 1 trillion on top of what we are started with this year, precisely 6.99 trillion. I said this year is 5.9, next year is 6.99, and the following year, 2023, is 7.6 trillion naira. So that's the outlook or the picture of the targets that we have in the immediate run, which is this year, and in the medium term to come next year and 2 years from now.
Agenda setting, or goal setting if you like, is an essential condition for any organization desirous of success. This interview with Mr. Oluwaniyi continues next episode, and he will be taking off from where he stopped today. He will be shedding more light on the tax collection targets set for the service in 2021 and beyond. Make it a point to join us. It promises to be more exciting and more educative than what you have seen so far. Thank you for watching. Have a beautiful week ahead.